Holy smokes! We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends. If you want to support this college football rebel outpost channel with a donation to help us keep the lights on, hit that dollar sign when you make a comment, and we'll get to you super chat as fast as we possibly can. Like the generous Tracy FSU, thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you so much for your super chat, helping us keep the lights on so we can do this every day. Thank you, Tracy FSU. Also, thank you for your donation. Don't even remember what song it was. It's completely there was a song that I sang off key. You donated to it, and I appreciate it, Tracy FSU, for your kindness. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend. Do not be afraid to be a legend, PATC community. With your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. We've got a stacked show today. Fridays are usually, or sometimes, a little bit on the low key, but not today. We've got a lot to get to. A whole lot to get to. Let me thank everybody who's come on in at the beginning of the show. Jared Jones, Mr. Buckeye, is first. Nick Kelso, Richard L., Mr. Colorado Buffalo, The Walking Geek. Stephen McNeely is in the house. Skoducky is here. Vox Quindaro is here. Buckshot Kid, Randy Taylor, Big Ears Bo, Andrew Creel, Nick Kelso, Jimmy Austin, Dark Moon, Matt Neeson, Mr. Cyclone is in the house. Daniel is in the house. Dave B is in the house. Hello, everyone, except the grumpy Utah fans. The elbows are already being thrown. Mr. Hawkeye is in the house. Chad Bracey is here. The generous Tracy FSU is in the house. Clay Try, Old Dad, DP. Minnesota Seminole is here. Les Austin Jr. And RGTXN is in the house. Hail to the Orange. Holy smokes. Jen Fari is here. Stephen Clark, Lego Gators. Mr. Terrapin is here. Connecticut fan. What will happen to UConn basketball if Hurley leaves? Oh, they'll probably win. They'll probably win. Brother Manzani is in the house. Anthony Carlson, Mr. Spartan, is here. Now, Anthony Carlson, breaking news. Breaking news, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, right when the music was playing, breaking news, Abu Tawali, the number one in-state Minnesota defensive lineman, has just committed to Minnesota. Oklahoma, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Kansas State was hot after him. Abu was about to take a visit to K-State. The Gophers' NIL money is increasing, and it looks like we're maintaining our top guys in the state. That is number one thing that we have to do. Congo is in the house. The Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, Movie Time Blues. It's not a cheese-free Friday. It's a cheese with the meat-free Friday. Amazing Blue is in the house. Michael Monk, thank you, Michael Monk, for your incredible generosity. Once again, thank you for your super chat to start off the show. I appreciate it so very much. So very much. Thank you so much. Michael M is in the house. N.E. How do you like those new uniforms from Minnesota, Greg? I like them. If you haven't seen them, go ahead and Google, or I can show you pictures later. This is the college football national show. But it is a new uniform. They have stripes on the sleeves, and they have stripes down the pants. That's basically the change. The stripes on the sleeve look real good. Now, the stripes on the pants, they look good. They look good. Now, as an old Gopher fan who started watching the Minnesota Golden Gophers during the 1970s, I like the stripes down the pants. Now, for any Minnesota Gopher fan in their 40s, in their 30s, in their 20s, in their teens, they're just used to your plain gold pants or your maroon pants. They're not used to the stripes. If you go watch the 1970 Minnesota Golden Gophers, the 1960 Minnesota Golden Gophers, if you watch when when Marion Barber Sr. was the great running back of the Gophers, our pants looked very similar to the USC Trojans. Now, these stripes are a little bit different. So that I like. But it looks like they got rid of the chrome helmet that we wore once or twice a year the last few years. I like those chrome helmets. I thought it looked pretty good on our setup. But it looks like they got rid of them. So it looks good. I like it. You know what, Immaculate? They're going to look really good when they're playing. Like, there's certain, you know how there's certain uniform combinations when you play. Those unis are going to look real nice when they're playing Iowa Hawkeyes. They're going to look real nice when USC comes to town with USC's road uniforms, with the white jersey, the gold pants, against what we're going to put up against it. It's going to really look good. It's going to be pretty interesting to see. Christopher Shannon is in the house. Jay Chapman is here. Kerry Gold Nose, keep it chopping. At least they'll look good when they're taking one on the chin from the Greek Rifle, Ethan, Kaliak, Manis, and the Scarlet Knights. Thank you all for coming on in. I appreciate it. Appreciate it so very much. Let's get right to it. Let's not waste any more time. Thank you, Tracy FSU. Thank you, Michael Monk, for your super chats. Let's start off with Baker, the great Matt Baker. This has come as no surprise. Tampa Bay Times, but he did the grunt work. He did the investigative work. The great Matt Baker has tremendous curiosity, and that's what you need to be in this line of business. He kept poking. He kept prodding. He kept sending out those FOIA requests. And now he got the answer that a lot of us expected to happen. But he got the answer. Which ACC schools voted to sue Florida State, and the two that didn't? The ACC has said its decision to file a lawsuit against Florida State was unanimous. Unanimous among the teams that were there to vote. A newly obtained document reveals which schools approved and which ones didn't participate. North Carolina joined Clemson in missing the ACC Board of Directors meeting and vote, according to minutes obtained Friday by the Tampa Bay Times. California, a non-voting incoming member, wasn't there either. All three were listed as invited but unable to attend. So there's your answer. We don't have to go through the rest of the article. North Carolina, Clemson, and of course Florida State they didn't even know the vote was happening. They didn't even get an invite, right? So the other 12 ACC schools voted to sue Florida State on January 12th, the second time around, not the first time, not on December 21st, when the ACC has argued in court that they were the first to file against Florida State. ACC versus Florida State. The ACC sued Florida State first, December 21st. Florida State sued on December 22nd. The ACC in Mecklenburg County has argued that the pleadings should go on in North Carolina and Mecklenburg County, and one of the reasons why is because they filed first. Of course, Florida State is arguing in Leon County that it was forum shopping. It looks like Judge Cooper may agree with Florida State. We're going to find out. But well, we've already found out in the aspect of Judge Cooper has ruled that the case is going to continue in Leon County, just like it's continuing in Mecklenburg County. But what is interesting? What is interesting is it looks like the ACC wants its cake, wants to eat it too, and wants to eat other people's cake. Sounds like the fat guy from Minnesota. In other words, in Clemson's reply today, June 3rd, on the ACC's motion to dismiss, Clemson, it happened, it downloaded today. I've read it, we're going to go over it. It just happened. Just happened today. Clemson is saying, wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. The ACC, in their argument against Florida State, the ACC saying we should have venue, we should have the jurisdiction, we should have it in Mecklenburg County. One of the reasons is because we filed first. Well, Clemson, they said it today. Now we're on the other side of the coin. Or we're on the other side of the fence. We, Clemson, we filed first. And we did nothing illegal, nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong. We filed first. We sued first. Was no trickery. No trickery. That's also in there. We're going to read it to you. Clemson comes out firing and saying, you're arguing, ACC is arguing all these points against Florida State. But they can't use the same argument against us when it comes to jurisdiction. Also, Clemson reminded the courts today again in Mecklenburg County. They argued again, look, you're using the same argument against Florida State. You continue, ACC, to use the same argument against Florida State that you use against us, but we're not arguing the same points as Florida State. Let me make it clear. Today, Clemson filed their support. This is in Mecklenburg County. Their support in motion to stay, and they're going against the ACC's motion to dismiss. This just happened. I don't think a whole lot of people know about it, but we're going to cover it on this live show. So buckle up, brace for impact. Florida ACC is arguing arguing against Florida State here, Clemson over here, but Florida State and Clemson have different arguments, and Clemson, without question, they filed first. They filed first. We'll get into that. Okay. But before we get into that, I want to touch upon a question that was asked. That was asked in John Wilner's article, Mailbag. Kerry Gold knows, holy smokes. Florida State just beat UConn 24-4 in Super Regional Game 1 for an NCAA most points scored, most runs scored in any Super Regional. Holy smokes. Thank you for the super chat, Kerry Gold knows. Now, you can't take some of those runs with you to the second game. right? That's only, okay, you won by 20 runs, carry. You won by 20 runs. But you got to win that second game. You got to beat them 2 out of 3 times. The UConn Huskies is going to come back at you, Kerry. Celebrate after you get that second win. That only counts as 1 win, but congratulations to the Seminoles. A big wallop in the first game against the UConn Huskies. Holy smokes. I mean runs. It must be the pain meds. No problem. No problem. Look, 24-4, tremendous. Now do it one more time. Do it one more time and you go into the College Baseball World Series. Has Florida State ever won the College Baseball World Series? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if Florida State has ever won the College Football World Series. The answer is never. Never. No. Nope. Geez, what is that university out there? I can't remember the name of it. That university out there that has won a football national championship, a wrestling national championship, a hockey national championship in men's and women's. They won the College World Series. I can't quite think of that school's name. What is it? Give me an answer in the chat if you remember, if you know that name. That Ed's got it right. Ed has got it right. Thank you, Ed. Minnesota Golden Gophers won the College Baseball World Series back when they won their football. Before any of us were born. 1956. I think they won it a couple of times. But anyways, Nebraska's never won a hockey. No, they don't have a hockey program. Okay. Minnesota was something before Hoover was president. Mr. Buckeye giving me an elbow. Mr. Buckeye giving me an elbow. Laugh now. Laugh now, Moen. Laugh now. Because I'm going to be laughing last. I am going to be laughing last when it comes to this football season for my beloved Golden Gophers. It might be in pain, but I'm going to be laughing. Either way. 56, 60, and 64. Okay. Let's get to it. John Wilner. We'll get to the Clemson here. They filed some pleadings today in Mecklenburg County against the ACC. Clemson basically saying, we're Clemson. Our argument is different than Florida State. And by the way, we filed first. We support the dismissal that should be thrown out of here in Mecklenburg County. It should be on pause. John Wilner, Mercury News. There have been a lot of rumors about what's waiting for California and Stanford once the ACC collapses. Could you break down the likelihood of each scenario? Such as joining the Big Ten, rejoining the Pac-12, etc. Celestial Mosh asked the question to John Wilner. Wilner, there is a case to be made that California and Stanford abandoned the Titanic, that Florida State and Clemson are leaving for the SEC of the Big Ten at some point in the next 3 or 5 years, and the ACC is doomed as a result. Lusitania, go from the Titanic to the Lusitania. It's difficult to envision anything. It's difficult to envision anything but a negotiated settlement that provides the Seminoles and Tigers with an escape hatch. And once they leave, the theory goes, North Carolina follows, and the whole thing blows apart. Would the remaining ACC schools seek to merge with the Big 12? Probably not. We shall see. Could they create their own league? Backfield? Absolutely. Could what's ever left over in the ACC, could they somehow join forces with the Big East in basketball? I don't think so. But some people believe that. Or some people believe they're going to be forming some Ivy League type of conference. I know the Hawkeye Immaculate believes that. A lot of theories out there. Some options out there. Or might the dissolution of the ACC spark a breakup of the power conference structure and lead to the formation of a super league? I don't believe so. I don't believe the SEC is going away. I don't believe the Big Ten is going away. A lot of people think it might. A lot of people are hoping that it does, and it forms some sort of super league. The timing is also uncertain, and it matters. Options for California and Stanford in a post-ACC world might be very different in 2 years as opposed to 5 years. Honestly, there are too many scenarios to cover here, but we will offer this morsel. John Wilner is offering a morsel. If the ACC crumbles, California and Stanford undoubtedly will attempt to join the Big Ten and create a 6-team West Coast division that makes loads of sense for fans and athletes alike. Now, Wilner is calling this a morsel, not just like an option, not like speculation. He believes California and Stanford undoubtedly will attempt to join the Big Ten if a post-ACC world happens because of its collapse. And finally, reform in the Pac-12 or join in the Big 12 would be secondary considerations. If they aren't already lobbying Fox, which would have to fund their move in the Big Ten, they should start immediately. Now, look at the two bookends of what Wilner said. Options for California and Stanford in a post-ACC world might be very different in 2 years as opposed to 5 years. California and Stanford will undoubtedly attempt to join the Big Ten. And then he says they should start immediately if they're not already lobbying Fox. There is nobody who's even putting up the pretense, the argument, that the ACC is not going to lose some of their big brand schools here in the next 2 to 3 years. Nobody is saying that the ACC is going to keep it all together. John Wilner, Dennis Dodd, Paul Feinbaum, Heather Dinich, Pete Thamel. The list goes on and on and on. None of them believe that the ACC is going to be able to stick together. They're going to have to find a negotiated settlement. Now, in the question of California, Stanford, sure, they'll call the Big Ten once again. And for me, just like when I was interviewed in the Los Angeles Times, Stanford is going to want Notre Dame to pull the trigger. I don't think being the fifth school on the Pacific Coast, if they're regarded as the fifth school on the Pacific Coast, I don't think that carries a lot of value. I don't. If the Big Ten goes to 24, I don't necessarily believe that the Big Ten will choose to have 6 Pacific Coast schools. It's definitely something they're going to have to consider, something that they're going to have to look at seriously, but I'm not sure how much weight they're going to give it. Is there a future where the Big Ten goes to 4 pods of 6 teams, or even 6 pods of 4 teams, or whatever? Yeah, there is. But there is a strong support right now for not having any divisions now and into the future. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see how these tiebreakers play out. We'll see how much weight these athletic directors keep putting on the fact that they want to play out each other as many times as possible within a 10-year span. So we'll see. California, and I've been honest with everybody here, California, we've heard nothing about California. Nothing from the money purchase. There's no steam. Stanford, there was, of course, some steam. Utah, there was some future steam. But California, we've heard nothing. So, again, Stanford, California lobbying the Big Ten? Obviously. If the ACC implodes, if the Big Ten picks off 2 schools from the Southeast, and Notre Dame pulls the trigger to be 21, or if Notre Dame even pulls the trigger to be 20, then all hell breaks loose. Then we're going to have to reevaluate everything. Once Notre Dame pulls the trigger, as either school 19, 20, or 21, if they don't pull the trigger, I think the Big Ten will stop at 20 for now, until Notre Dame does. Okay, let's get into, first of all, I want to congratulate Jim Reese, Wet Blanket, Christopher Shannon, Matt Higgins, and JL for all becoming a member of our show, Early Peak. You can go to our episodes. You can go to our episodes, go to our YouTube channel, and watch the Early Peak Cloak and Dagger membership only episodes. You are all knighted. You are all knighted Cloak and Dagger. Now, today was a good day of the channel gifting 5 memberships, because I got a feeling that tomorrow morning there's going to be episode 39 of Cloak and Dagger. We're going to be dropping a little bit of Cloak and Dagger on a certain situation that is evolving. We're not going to touch it on the live show. It's nothing imminent, but we're going to drop it first for our members on Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. So, Jim Reese, Wet Blanket, Christopher Shannon, Matt Higgins, and JL, keep your head on a swivel. Check this channel tomorrow. Go look at our Early Peak Cloak and Dagger members only episodes, and you'll get a little taste of it on a Saturday morning And then Saturday night is all right for PATC. We're going to be covering that little nugget, that little bit cloak and dagger. So just give everybody a heads up. Let's get to the next story. And I don't think anybody is covering this right now. This broke while I was in the studio creating this live show today. I went ahead and checked Mecklenburg County and boom, out of nowhere. Let's pop it up. Mecklenburg County. You know what? Let me get that. There you go. Nope, too big. Okay. Clemson University reply brief in support of motion to stay. And I'm going to read, there's 14 pages. I'm not going to go through it all. But this is Clemson's reply, subject to and without waiving the jurisdictional objections asserted in its motion to dismiss. Clemson's University submits this reply brief in further support of its motion to stay. The Atlantic Coast Conference opposition to that motion fails to undermine Clemson's position that the court should accord great deference to its status as the first filer, in that forcing Clemson to proceed in the second filed suit would work a substantial injustice. The ACC's opposition obfuscates key differences between Clemson's position and the position advanced by Florida State University in the ACC versus Florida State litigation. The ACC also invents a new lawyers' mutual factor, which of course it cannot, and claims that new factor cuts in its favor. Finally, the ACC ignores South Carolina's compelling interest in the outcome of this litigation and advances in an erroneous, unsupported argument in a last-ditch attempt to undermine Clemson's status as a natural plaintiff. That attempt is likewise unsuccessful. Clemson's disagreement with the ACC over the scope of the grant of rights, currently being litigated in Clemson's first filed South Carolina lawsuit, presents a very different set of issues than Florida State's claim that the grant of rights is invalid and unenforceable. Florida State contends that the grant of rights is invalid and unenforceable because it was never approved by Florida State Board of Trustees, the only body that can legally bind Florida State, and for a lack of consideration, among other reasons. Here, Clemson has repeatedly made plain that it is not challenging the validity or enforceability of the grant of rights, full stop, period. The ACC opposition glosses over these critical differences between the two cases. The argument in reply. Clemson sued first. This is the title of our live show today. This is the title. Clemson sued first, and there was nothing improper in its decision to do so. What's more, the ACC cannot now erase from this court's stay analysis the great deference owed to Clemson's choice of its home forum just because the ACC sued Clemson here only a day later. Nor can the ACC fairly ask this court to ignore the material differences between this lawsuit and the Florida State action. Just as the issues raised by Clemson's first filed action are different from the issues raised by Florida State's second filed action. You see how Clemson keeps making the difference between Clemson and Florida State? Clemson's first filed action are different from the issues. The issues are different, and it was raised by Florida State's second filed action. The application and analysis of the lawyers' mutual factors differs in this case from the Florida State action, and on balance favors a stay in this case. Moreover, Clemson is, and has always been, a natural plaintiff. In filing of the South Carolina action was proper because the dispute presents issues of great interest to the state of South Carolina. Clemson's first filer status deserves great deference. Disregarding it and proceeding in this second filed case would cause a substantial injustice. The ACC discounts the importance of filing first, in filing in one's home forum, suggesting that these factors merit little, if any, consideration. When the shoe was on the other foot, however, the ACC saw things differently. That is the PATC money shot of Clemson's reply brief today, June 7th. The ACC versus Clemson in Mecklenburg County, the ACC's discounting the importance of filing first. But when the shoe was on the other foot, when it was ACC versus Florida State in Mecklenburg County, the ACC saw things differently. The ACC's trying to have it both ways. And this is Judge Bledsoe, the same judge and then it cites a court case saying that North Carolina courts begin with the presumption that a plaintiff's choice of forum deserve deference. And then it talked about the Florida State action, which just happened. This court, this Mecklenburg court, same judge, confirmed the importance of these considerations in the Florida State action, noting in its order rejecting a stay that North Carolina courts generally give great deference to the plaintiff's choice of forum. In a similar vein, the ACC complains falsely that Clemson achieved its first filer status here by trickery. That never happened. As an initial matter, the court should disregard these unsupported contentions. Clemson denies them. Now, I'm going to ask the PATC community, who's been following all these cases, everything going on in college football, because we are PATC, peek around the corner. What is this trickery that Clemson did? What is the trickery that Clemson did? How did Clemson catch the ACC off guard? We'll go into that. We will go into that. Clemson denies them, and the ACC filed no affidavits to support them, citing only its unverified complaint. So the ACC, no affidavits, no evidence, no evidence. I would love to see that evidence of trickery. I believe I know what the ACC is talking about because it was in their first complaint filed when they first sued Clemson in Mecklenburg County. We'll go into it once we're done with this reply brief from Clemson. June 7th, happened today. I'm interested to see if the chat is on top of what they think is the ACC. What does the ACC believe Clemson did when it came to trickery? While the court must accept the allegations in the ACC's complaint as true in evaluating Clemson's motion to dismiss, it may not do so in connection with the motion to stay. Even if unsupported allegations were sufficient, the ACC does not allege in its complaint that there was a standstill agreement, that either party gave either protections that it would not file suit. Okay, let's talk about it now. Let's talk about it now. We're going to get back into it. We're going to get back into it. Ryan Willie, thank you for becoming an early peak member once again. We'll go back to that reply brief, but we've got to drill down in this trickery. The ACC's, what they're trying to hang on to when it comes to matter of venue, when it comes to matter of jurisdiction, they're claiming Clemson did some trickery. We're going to go into what ACC is believing, or at least saying what Clemson did. Ryan Willie, thank you so much for becoming an early peak member. You are hereby officially knighted Cloak and Dagger. Robert Toronto, thank you so much for becoming a new member of the early peak Cloak and Dagger. You, Robert, are hereby officially knighted Cloak and Dagger. Congratulations to Ryan. Congratulations to Robert. Thank you so much for your generosity once again. The trickery was, remember, and I think it was in paragraph, I don't want to go back. I'm just going to tell you what I remember, what we read together on the very first complaint when the ACC sued Clemson. The ACC said that the conference, that Clemson came to the ACC, that Clemson asked, can we have a discussion about our membership in the ACC? You remember that? This is the ACC claiming that this happened. The ACC said Clemson came to us, wanted to talk about its membership. Clemson wanted to have discussions, confidential discussions with the ACC. Confidential, number one. Number two, Clemson wanted assurances that the ACC would not sue them. That the ACC would not sue Clemson for just merely talking about, in these confidential discussions, just let's talk about what we can do, and I'm gonna add this part in. What we can do to get out of this conference. That's what basically Clemson wanted to have a discussion with. In confidence, confidentiality and protection, not to get sued from you guys, from the conference. The ACC, in ACC's own words, own description, said they would agree, that they agreed that they would have these confidential conversations and they would not sue. The ACC described in their complaint, the original complaint, that as they were writing up the document, as they were writing it up, confidentiality, protection, we're going to be talking about Clemson's membership of the ACC. Bam! Out of nowhere, Clemson filed the suit against the ACC in Pickens County. And the ACC is saying that is the trickery. Clemson tricked us. They were able to file before they snuck it in on us. So that's the trickery. Now, let's go back to what Clemson is saying about this, about ACC claiming Clemson's trickery. Even if the unsupported allegations were sufficient, the ACC does not allege in its complaint that there was a standstill agreement. True. There was no agreement. The ACC says they were writing it up. They were in the process of writing up an agreement. But obviously neither side signed it. So one, Clemson says there was a standstill agreement. The ACC does not allege in its complaint that there was a standstill agreement, because there wasn't. The ACC does not allege in its complaint that either party gave the other any protections that it would not file suit, because there was no agreement. Not yet. The ACC does not allege in its complaint that there was a meeting of the minds on the question of a tolling or any litigation-related agreement. The ACC does not allege those things because they never happened. There is no standstill agreement. There never was, and there's no allegation, much less any fact to support the contention that Clemson tricked the ACC into refraining from suing Clemson. All the ACC has, in my opinion, I happen to agree with Clemson from what I can read, from what I could possibly know, which is not much, only what I read here. The ACC, all the ACC has is, hey, we were in the process of writing something up. That's all they got. There was no agreement. There's no allegations of an agreement. And Clemson saying the contention that Clemson tricked the ACC into refraining from suing Clemson is a joke. The ACC has no argument. There is no trickery. Clemson goes on. Just as the ACC argued to this court in the Florida State action, Clemson did nothing improper when it filed suit against the ACC in its home forum before the ACC sued Clemson here. Look, Clemson is not arguing Florida State's case. In fact, Clemson is using the Florida State case in saying we're the opposite. Clemson is being like George Costanza. We're Mr. Opposite today. We're the opposite. Our issues are opposite. How the process played out were opposite. So if the ACC has a great case against Florida State, well, they're not going to have a great case against us. Not when it comes to venue, not when it comes to jurisdiction, and maybe not even about the facts of the case. Because Clemson is not arguing the same stuff as Florida State is. Almost like Florida State and Clemson are playing good cop, bad cop. But Clemson is not arguing. They're not buttressing Florida State. They're not even agreeing with Florida State. And I don't think that's a bad thing for Florida State. If I was Florida State, if I was a Florida State Seminole fan, I'd say go for it, Clemson. We're just looking for some type of victory. We're just looking for them to go to the negotiation table. We're taking one track, you go ahead, take the other. Clemson is saying we did nothing improper. Just like the ACC argued against Florida State, the ACC did nothing improper when they filed first. We did nothing improper when we filed first against the ACC. In that prior case, in the Florida State action, ACC versus Florida State, the ACC vigorously defended its own decision to file first in its home forum. If there was a race to the courthouse, Florida State started it. This is ACC's argument against Florida State action. Moreover, there is nothing improper about a party seeking to protect its rights by filing first. This is exactly what Clemson did. This is Clemson. The ACC's own arguments from the Florida State action undermines its contrarian position here now that it is the second filer. And this is the same judge. I'm not a lawyer, but I think Judge Bledsoe, just from my particular understanding of it, Judge Bledsoe is going to have to sue. He's going to have to do some mental gymnastics here. He's going to have to pull out some cards here. He's going to have to do some gymnastics to get the ACC to consider the ACC to be the first filer here, for them to have venue jurisdiction over Clemson, because it's the opposite of what happened in the Florida State action. We're going to skip that part because I don't understand that next part. In the Florida State action, this Mecklenburg court, evaluated these factors from the side of the fence where the ACC's case was the first to file in its home forum, and the validity and enforceability of the ACC contracts were squarely at issue. The differences in this case compels a different conclusion, since the first filed home forum suit, which is simply seeks a construction of the contract at issue rather than challenging its validity or enforceability, was brought elsewhere, this court should defer to Clemson's choice of home forum. Because Clemson was the first filer, and they're not arguing Florida State, what Florida State is arguing. They're not arguing the validity of the grant of rights. They're not arguing the enforceability of the grant of rights. They just happen to believe the grant of rights says something different than the ACC does. And they want a summary motion judgment on it. So all these reasons that Judge Bledsoe ruled in favor of ACC being the first filer, none of these are true against Clemson. Not a one. Skipping that part because I don't understand that part. I'm sorry, I don't understand all this. We're going to Clemson has always been a natural plaintiff. Hold 1 second, everybody. Hold on. I just got a message from somebody. Hold on. Calling a timeout here. Calling a timeout. Okay, Clemson has always been the natural plaintiff. As to Clemson's status as an injured party and a natural plaintiff, the ACC argues the court should ignore it because Clemson's slander of the title claim in South Carolina was added only after the ACC sued in North Carolina. The ACC cites no authority for this proposition, and Clemson has found none. In fact, similar to North Carolina, the rules of civil procedure in South Carolina provide whenever the claim or defense asserted in the amended pleading arose out of conduct, transition, or occurrence set forth or attempted to be set forth in the original pleadings, the amendment relates back to the date of the original pleading. Clemson's slander of title claim arises from the same fact as the claims in Clemson's original pleading and is predicated on conduct that occurred in 2022. Accordingly, even if one assumes that Clemson must advance such a claim to be considered a natural plaintiff under the court's analysis, which Clemson denies, Clemson had a viable damages claim when it filed originally, first, and Clemson has always been a natural plaintiff, whether or not it asserted the claim when it filed its initial complaint. The ACC also reminds the court of its conclusion in the Florida State action that it is the ACC as the non-breaching party rather than Florida State's board as the alleged breaching party that is injured party in the dispute. In the Florida State action, the ACC alleged that Florida State was about to breach the covenant of the grant of rights. That Florida State will not take any action or permit any action taken by others or fail to take any action that it would affect the validity and enforcement of the rights granted to the conference under this agreement. Clemson has not done the same. You cannot use those same arguments, even though the ACC did against Clemson. Clemson has not done the same as Florida State, no matter how hard the ACC tries to pretend otherwise. Seeking a judicial determination as to the scope of the grant of rights in the South Carolina court proceeding does not contest the agreement's enforceability or the validity and does not amount even arguably to a breach of the agreement. Given Clemson's position, materially different from the suit advanced by Florida State, the ACC has no viable claim of breach by Clemson and no discernible injury. So Clemson is the natural plaintiff here. The ACC is not being injured. Clemson is not challenging the enforceability. They're not even challenging if the grant of rights was real. Clemson signed it. They're not saying they did not sign it. Their interpretation of it is different, and they want a judgment on the interpretation. Clemson is the natural plaintiff. It filed first. Clemson is a natural plaintiff here. And as the court noted in Florida State action, it need not be the only one. The fact that Clemson is also a natural plaintiff is sufficient for Clemson to maintain its first filer advantage. And then it goes on to talk about the parties' dispute matters, local importance. Conclusion, for the foregoing reasons and without waiver of its impending jurisdictional challenges, Clemson respectfully renews its request that this court stay under North Carolina. Now, there was another reply brief. We're not going to go through it. This is also well, anyways, we're not going to go through anymore. I think we got the gist of it. Okay. Thank you for everybody staying with us here as we read those legal documents. But it is important. It is important. We always do this. We dig deep on this channel. We actually read the documents. We got to know the lay of the land and what is going on. Kerry Gold knows it was smart for Clemson to watch some of what Florida State versus ACC lawsuit before they filed. That gave them ideas where to attack. And it did not. Thank you for your super chat, Kerry Gold knows. Thank you for your continued generosity to this channel. I appreciate it. Appreciate your friendship. Thank you, Kerry. Look, we also said before this begun, Expedition Greg, I already went through that. Earlier in the monologue, peek around the corner, did you see Matt Baker's latest article? We went through a couple pages of it. Yep. Thank you. Hold on one second here. No problem. So this, again, as we discussed before, even before this started, even before, or at least, or maybe right after Florida State filed a suit, Clemson and Florida State, we're always going to do this differently. Not saying one is bad, one is good. They were always going to be different. We talked about how we had people tell us at Peek Around the Corner that their board of trustees is completely different from each other. How they conduct business, how they do things. One is more button up, the other one is more freelance. One is way more conservative, caution in their actions. The other one, again, is more freelance, and that is Florida State. Florida State had the motivation, emotional, financial, everything. They had everything going for them when they filed this lawsuit. Clemson, of course, has the motivations too. Going second is an advantage in many aspects, but they just went about this differently. Now, I happen to think, or at least it's my speculation, and there are different states. Yes. I happen to think that, and we don't know. I could be completely wrong here. But it is my speculation. This is speculation only. Speculation only. No steam on this. This is completely speculation. But I've always wondered, and I'm not going to know if I'm correct or not unless we go to discovery. But I've wondered from the very first day, or even before the first day, But the day that Florida State, when we were able to read the complaint, when Florida State sued the ACC on December 22nd, when Florida State went after the validity of the gore, the enforceability of the gore, enforceability of the exit fee. My contention is that Florida State has something in the back. They have an ace in their pocket. Some sort of communication. I don't know. This is speculation. This is not verified. I'm just speculating. But the reason why Florida State went aggressive on this, because I think they were promised something. I think they were promised some consideration that the ACC did not own up to. Or there is something in the media agreement that there is something that Florida State did not get, and they were promised in some form of communication in which they have it in their hands. You know, we don't know the full. I don't believe we know the full. We haven't had discovery. Remember, Florida State was the last school to sign the amended grant of rights. I think they were the last school to sign the original grant of rights. The grant of rights that were first produced by the ACC after Maryland left to go to the Big Ten, and Maryland just had to pay the exit fee. So that they created the grant of rights. Clemson signed, boom. Florida State, they had to go down to Tallahassee and twist some arms. Swofford and the gang. And I'm just wondering if Florida State has something else up there in their sleeve. Now, for Clemson, I think that they truly believe that gore is limited in scope. And there's language in there that points to it. Or at least they believe a South Carolina judge is going to believe it. And Clemson wants to speed the pace up. They want to get a judgment summary. Clemson, now, you can either believe one or two things about Clemson. And then we're going to open up to your phone calls. I appreciate it, Stephen Vitt. I want to say this, though. And Stephen Vitt might say, okay, Greg has gone off the cheese have slipped off Greg's cracker. That might be Stephen's comment after this. I think Clemson is either one of these two things. One, Clemson, it's either one or two things. In my mind, you let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if there's a third, fourth, fifth option. From what we know, from the complaints, from the pleadings and everything else, Clemson is either one of these two things. One is that they went in to have honest talks. They were altruistic. They want out of the ACC. They know what's going on here. We don't have to go through it. They're trying to get above the stratification line. They've already won. They've won recent national championships. Their university has exploded with exposure for the last 20 years, the last 10 years. It's helped the students. It's helped everything. The community, everything. They want to keep trying to compete at the highest level, and they want the revenues that's going to be needed, the investment, the exposure. So they went into, this is either one or two ways for Clemson. One is that Clemson went in to discuss with every honest bone in their body to talk to the ACC to say, hey, we want to talk about how we can get out of this conference. What do we need to do? We want to talk to you, we want to have confidentiality, and we want to have protection. We don't want have anybody know that we're talking to you, and we don't want to be sued by you just because we're having this discussions. Either Clemson went into this with a full heart, open mind, open eyes, or Clemson went into this in where they created a smokescreen. Trickery. Woo, 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 woo. ACC, let's talk. Da, 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 da. And then boom, they made sure they were the first filer. Now, the ACC's complaining about trickery, but there was no agreement. I think Clemson's argument goes a long ways. This is what I think. This, again, complete speculation. Either you believe Clemson went in at a true heart, or they win at true trickery to make sure they're the first filer. This is what I believe. I believe it's A. I believe Clemson truly, they've been talking about this for over a year internally. This was not a surprise to the ACC. We knew about it. That's why we kept telling you we believe Clemson is going to do just what Florida State did. They're going to sue. Even when it looked like people were starting to have doubts, we kept saying, no, it's going to happen. Because the chatter was heavy. This was not a surprise to ACC. What I think what happened is Clemson went in to talk with the ACC. They wanted one last ditch effort, not to have it go to court, to see if the ACC would settle. I think the Clemson also wanted just to feel the ACC out. How interested are they? And then I think they had some brief discussions, and I think Clemson said to themselves, this is going nowhere. Maybe the ACC said a couple things, and Clemson knew that that number was going to be way too high, that they had nothing to lose to go to court. I believe after Clemson talked with the ACC, the very top of the leadership, the commissioner, Jim Phillips, we've seen pictures of the athletic director and the commissioner talking to each other, sitting with each other before Clemson sued. I think the ACC's comment to Clemson, whatever that was, led to Clemson saying, screw it, we're going to the courts. So I believe Clemson went at it as not trying to be tricky, but just trying to feel the ACC out. And I think they knew they were going to hit a wall, and then they went to sue. We're going to go to your phone calls right now. Ryan Willie, thank you so much for your incredible generosity. Holy smokes.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Ryan Willie, just 5 gifted memberships. My goodness. Dr. L. Smith, Clemson Cobra, Soap, Laura Wellborn, and P.A. No Fan. Wow. All 5 of you now, because of the generosity of the evil badger, Ryan Willie, you all are hereby officially knighted Cloak and Dagger. And Ryan Willie, once again, of course, you are knighted Cloak and Dagger. Thank you so much. So, the Doctor, Clemson Cobra, Soap, Laura Wellborn, and P.A. No Fan. You can go to our YouTube channel, check out Cloak and Dagger early peak episodes from members only. And we're going to be dropping one tomorrow morning, Saturday, June 8th. We're going to be dropping episode 39, early peak episode, in which we're going to be talking about whatever we're talking about in episode 38. We're going to be talking about it later on PATC. Saturday night is all right for PATC. So you 5, please go check out our YouTube channel sometime tomorrow morning. Dr. Clemson Cobra Soap, Laura Wellborn, PA No. When you get a chance, please say thank you to the evil one, the evil badger, Ryan Willie, who proudly represents his Badgers. Okay. Let's go to the phone calls. Tell me how wrong I got it all. Tell me how much I've wasted everybody's time by reading the Clemson's brief, but I really wanted to do it. The brief reply, I really wanted to do it. It just broke. It broke about 30 minutes before we came on live. We're probably the only ones covering it. I do appreciate you all coming on in. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. As we're waiting for a call, Immaculate sent me something here. Very interesting. Mr. Hawkeye sent me something here. I was going to go on to talk about something else.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, can you hold on a moment?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I thank you so very much.
No problem.
Brian Murphy, WRAL, thank you, Immaculate, for sending this to me. Let's pop it up here. I don't know what's wrong with me. I do not know what is wrong with the host. Popping it up on the screen in case you missed it. Bill to force UNC and North Carolina State to play each other in other in-state FBS teams in football and women's basketball, won't get House vote, says pro UNC speaker. Let me just scan this real quick, BJ. Just give me a moment.
No worries.
It's had the hearing. It will have. House Speaker Tim Moore said it had a committee hearing. I told them they could hear it in committee, but it won't come to the floor. The kids want to play these games. The fans want to see these games. David Willis, a Union County Republican, sponsored the bill. Moore told reporters the bill would not advance. Okay, short little article. Internal politics going on in the state of North Carolina. The pro, it makes sense that the pro North Carolina Chapel Hill voices don't, they don't want to have more strings attached to whatever happens to them in the future. It's difficult enough. It's difficult enough without the government telling you what you need to do, who you need to play. But I understand the other interest of the other representatives in the North Carolina political landscape, how they want their smaller FBS schools to make sure they have access to playing North Carolina State. BJ, the floor is yours. You can talk about anything in college football that you desire.
Yeah, that Brian Murphy guy was the guy he was talking about how academics is very important with the ACC presidents. He seems like a pretty well-to-do guy.
Yeah.
But before I say anything, I was watching the Big Ten TED show the other day.
Yeah.
And he name dropped you. So in a very nice way. So I don't know if you guys know each other, but he spoke highly of you.
Yeah, we know each other. I've been on the show a couple times. I've been on Big Ten TED show, and I've been on Big 12 Mafia, and I've been on Justin Walker. it's very difficult for me to get on people's shows. I wish I could, but I have a very difficult time scheduling. If I schedule something with you, BJ, there's always a good chance that I'm not going to be able to keep my commitment. Just the way my life is right now. So,
duly noted.
And I don't like doing that to people. You know, it's... So anyway, Big Ten Ted has an unbelievable, an incredible YouTube channel.
Yep.
He is incredibly talented, real smart guy, way smarter than me, way more talented than me. People got to be watching. I know a lot of people watch his show. That show's only going to grow in unbelievable levels. Him, there's a bunch of good ones out there, but he's at the very top of the food chain. Big Ten Ted is unbelievable talent. But anyways, go ahead, BJ.
So the just commenting on your last segment, the pro UNC guy mentioning that the bill won't make it to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
UNC, Duke, and North Carolina State reminds me of Miami, Florida, and Florida State, whereas like Miami and Florida State is more like a brotherly kind of back and forth, but the Noles hate the Gators and the Gators hate the Noles. And what I'm finding out is the hate between the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels is just as, strong. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, how the connection between the two schools end up being. I think there's more energy towards keeping them together than breaking them apart, but we shall see on what comes of those two schools. But what I want to kind of communicate with you with was I heard this a couple of days ago about Jim Phillips, that he was communicating with the ESPN about something new with their deal.
Yeah.
Ongoing
talks, you call it.
Yeah. Have you heard anything? So it's two questions. What I heard was that it's going to be kind of a tiered thing where, based off whatever metric that ESPN and HC comes up with, every school will be placed in a tier with the opportunity to go up or go down based off performance. And if that's true, what do you think about it as it pertains to this new hypothetical performance metric for the ACC media deal?
Are you saying that you're speculating that there could be like a more of an official unequal revenue sharing and schools are going to get put in tiers and then you can move up or move down based on performance?
Yes. So according to, this was from a Florida State person that I know.
Okay.
He said that's what the scuttlebutt was based off TV performance, based off how much money the school invests into football, viewership is a part of it. They started last year with the performance base. If you make it to an ACC football championship, you get more money, and they were just going to expand on that. And the reason why I find it interesting was FSU was wanting this a couple years ago, and pretty much all the schools shot it down. And so to see it back on the table from the ESPN side, I wonder how will the schools take it, being that it's being forced on them and they didn't have to vote on it.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true though.
Okay.
When they had discussions, there was enough ACC schools that acquiesced to this unequal revenue sharing a little bit based on performance. But what the majority of the ACC schools did not acquiesce on was unequal revenue sharing per viewership. Because, Duke could have 3 great seasons in a row. They could win 2 ACC championships in 3 years. but still not have the viewership of the top schools because, one, they don't have a big fan base, but number two, they might not even get the time slots because they're not regarded as one of the. So they would get a better time slots at the end of the year because they're having such a good year. But overall, they're still not going to have. You're asking too much of these other programs to say, okay, now, I mean, and I also think there's a law of diminishing returns on equal revenue sharing, because if the bottom teams in your conference now are giving away more money. If the bottom ACC teams are making $10 million less than the bottom of the Big 12 and only a few more million than the top of the G5 schools, and now their ability to compete gets weaker and weaker and weaker. Their wins and losses, their strength of schedule, they start losing to other programs that should be below them, and it starts to affect the whole conference. So I think you got to be careful with that as well. I think there's a law of diminishing return, and I think they're up against it. And I think Florida State and Clemson know that. In my mind, they're only arguing for more unequal revenue sharing so they can kind of say they're trying to find a solution when there really is not a solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that there's some truth to that, in my opinion. I think the thing with the ACC schools, especially the private schools outside of Miami, they're based off how much money they invest in the football, which is incredibly low, and we compare it to like the upper half of the conference. There doesn't seem to be an appetite to win, just to compete. And I think like you have the Syracuses of the world, the Virginias, the Dukes, right? I think they're just more basketball schools. There's nothing wrong with it, but they just don't invest. You know, I looked at, I think it was Sports Raptor, or one of the database websites, and you know, Duke spends $47 million in basketball, and in football they spend just north of $50 million. So it doesn't seem that, in my opinion, if you're a football school, you want to compete in football, just like Brett Yormark went to Arizona to convince the Arizona Board of Governors to, hey, invest in football. I think you should not have to go to those lengths to convince schools to compete in football when they're getting all of this TV money.
Well,
that's just my opinion.
No, I mean, I agree, but again, I agree, BJ, but you know what? When you have a 16-team conference, guess what? Some of those schools, some schools are going to be at the bottom of the investment, right? I mean, and those schools don't have they don't have a recruiting ground around them in football. For them, it's a law of diminishing returns because they're still going to be 4-8, even if they spend $5 million more. So you better put it in a basketball or lacrosse or something else. And I think a lot of schools would love to compete at the highest top of the football, but man, it's you know, I look at Wisconsin here in Big Ten country. I look at Iowa and Wisconsin, and they've invested so much in football, right? They have.
Yeah.
And you know, Iowa and Wisconsin couldn't quite make it to the college football playoffs, 14 playoffs. Right? They couldn't beat Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan enough times, especially in the Big Ten championship game. But you know what? Most of the country couldn't either. But yet, you know, it's like Wisconsin, Iowa. They're just Big Ten West schools. They don't mean nothing. Well, they're investing. They're beating people up, but they just can't quite crack the top. They're still going to dream about it. They're still going to go for it. They're going to invest, but man, it is tough to crack into it's tough to beat Florida State, baby. It's tough to beat Clemson. It's tough to beat Alabama. It's impossible, okay, to beat these top echelon teams. So I also understand the other side of the coin when now these athletic directors, they're going to have a salary cap. They're going to have to spend enough money to keep their conference mates happy. But boy, if I've got a chance to win more basketball games or something else and take a little bit, I would probably do it.
Yeah, that stuff it's not someone's right, someone's wrong. It's more of a perspective. And from that perspective, if you want to put like-minded programs and schools and administrations together, maybe it is better served for the Clemsons and the Florida States of the world to go to a Power 2 where it's more bloodthirsty in terms of football.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll get off here. I did see the Minnesota jerseys today. They were pretty fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super dope. I liked them.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Have a blessed one.
Yeah, you too. Great call. Great call. Thank you, BJ.
Call from
Immaculate.
Mr. Hot Guy is on the line. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, how we doing today?
I'm doing good. I had an allergy attack again today. I was sneezing like crazy. I'm surprised I haven't sneezed yet during the show. But how are you doing, sir?
Not too bad. Didn't get one announcement I thought today, but this announcement out of North Carolina was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was reacting and making long-term decisions based off of, oh, look at this scheduling that we're going to have, and then it didn't happen. So where do we go with this, Greg? Was this just a signal sense of, careful, we could do this if we want to, or was this an attempt that got blown up, and so the opposite is now taken? Where do you think we stand? I'm kind of in the middle here, not quite sure which way to go.
I think North Carolina is swinging, trying to hit a nail with 5 hammers in their hands. I think there's a lot of competing interest.
Yeah.
I think it's a quagmire from the House to the Senate to the Board of Governors to the Board of Trustees, everything in between. I think it's a big mess. And that's what happens when you try to spread out decision making too much, It's I don't know. It's going to be and the same thing's going to happen in the state of Virginia. Oh God. We're going to have to cover it all, Immaculate. I don't know. That's my best. I don't know. I don't have any answers.
Yeah, I don't know about Virginia. They don't have the same type of Board of Governors situation. And if they run into a similar kind of mixed political situation, it might get kind of goofy there too. I know people only generally think of Virginia and Virginia Tech there, but that's expanded recently, right? Now we have James Madison. Do we have any other? Anyways, some of the schools have come up there, so it's a little more complicated there too. But I just think this makes the Board of Governors more powerful.
Yeah.
I think they're all powerful in this. What they want is what's going to happen. It just got shown, at least on the surface, that the legislature can't do anything about this. They cannot jump in. They cannot force something one way or another, probably, and it's just the Board of Governors. So we'll see, but I think that, as Ryan Willie says in chat, I think that's a package deal, and there's just no getting out of it. This pretty much just shows how strong they are.
Yeah.
And in terms of the lawsuit that you're going about, this thing just gets wackier and wackier. I mean, when you really start to dig into some of these papers and filings, it starts to just get childish. it's hard to take it seriously.
Well, we're gonna keep covering it here at Peek Around the Corner. When the filings are, when they have something juicy like what was in there today. Clemson is trying to make it clear to Judge Bledsoe in Mecklenburg County, our case is completely different than Florida State. So you can't use, if you're going to rule against us, if you're going to rule for ACC, good luck, because the argument that the ACC used against Florida State, we're going to be using against the ACC, basically. So
Yep.
Everyone's trying to gain leverage here. So what will happen? We'll see what happens.
What role do you think North Carolina was supposed to play? I mean, we're seeing the role of Florida State. We're now seeing the role that Clemson was to play. What role was North Carolina supposed to play before they got taken out of the game? Because I think there's enough, and I've said this multiple times in multiple locations, I think there's enough data points now to show North Carolina was in this. I mean, they didn't get kept out of the vote on FSU simply because of their no vote on expansion. You got to believe that people in the conference were looking at North Carolina like they're looking to leave too. I mean, for them to pick Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina to just not reach out to.
According to, I didn't post this part of the article.
Yeah, I saw that. I know exactly where you're going. And
something to do with Kevin Gusowich.
They put it under a certain thing saying that they were invited, but that they didn't show up. But that's like a status.
Yeah.
And
the minutes,
and the other side is saying that they were never reached out to. So,
The minutes of the meeting list Kevin Gusowich as North Carolina's absent director and the board's vice chair. Gusowich was leaving his position at North Carolina's chancellor to become the president of Michigan State, where he formally started in March. The meeting was during Lee H. Roberts' first day as UNC's interim chancellor. And that was on a Friday. I remember doing a show on that. While we were doing a show on Lee H. Roberts' first day, announcing he was first day, that's when they were having the meeting with everybody else for the 12-0 vote to sue Florida State. So
I'm sure that could be coincidence, but
yeah. I never got any chatter. Like, there was nothing like North Carolina is going to sue, right? And then, last October, we read the reports that the power, it looked like it was going to go to the Board of Governors. Then in January, they changed the policy at UNC Chapel Hill that gave more power to the Board of Governors. And then a couple of months later, it became official that the Board of Governors was getting all this more power. So we really never got that chatter that North Carolina was going to do what Clemson and Florida State were going to do. So when we're thinking about what part they're going to play, if they ever did, like we've talked about before, if they ever did go to the courts, it would be a psychological blow to the ACC. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's a great question. I don't know. I think they're waiting for. I don't know. I don't know if their role has changed or not during all this, because they're such in a quagmire. Again, 5 hammers are swinging to try to hit one nail. They got so much. They don't have the ability to make a decision.
Wouldn't you say, though, at the school itself, they were probably pretty much decided? I mean, like I said, the president falling down to Michigan State, like, nothing against Michigan State. We got Michigan State folks in chat, great school, but that was not like, oh, I'm moving up in the world. Like, it was that's a parachute.
He got kicked out.
Yeah, and with the not part of the vote, voting against expansion, I I mean, maybe they weren't going to do any more. That's entirely possible. But I just got to think that they were a part of this and they were trying to get out.
Yeah.
And so it just makes me wonder,
Yeah.
what part would they have played in this drama? And we'll never know. But I just think it's an interesting discussion point. We shall see.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's about it. I found it interesting that that's still going on. I think it's basically, if you think of them arm wrestling at a settlement table, that's really what's going on with these court cases.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not about getting to the end. It's about positioning for the final settlement whenever that comes to us here.
Yeah.
But good stuff, though. It's amusing to see.
And that new Big Ten commercial that we're all waiting on, right?
Yeah.
Is that probably going to drop July 1st, right?
That's what do you say? That's the chalk. But my pushback is, if you know you might be expanding here in the future again, do you want to release that?
Yeah,
or do you want to hold it?
You do.
You think so?
Yeah, because you don't know when you're expanding, and that's a great marketing. Nah, you got to release that. They've been working on it. It's done, right? They just have to release it. I
just been in terms of holding it and putting the other ones on there. Like, if they were to announce here in like a few months, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like if it's next year or whatever. No, you don't wait. But I was just saying like if it's this summer that we might hear something.
Yeah,
maybe you flip them on. I don't know. But
Justin R makes a great comment that the Pac-12 ain't dead until August 1st. You are correct. The grant of rights is actually 1 month after the fiscal year of the previous year ends on July 1st. Most grant of rights end on July 1st, but Justin R is correct, August 1st. So we'll probably see the Big Ten commercial on August 1st.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just the Daryl Harlow and Jet saved my butt. I was asking like what the Virginia schools were. James Madison, Old Dominion, and Liberty. So the numbers are the same in Virginia as they are in North Carolina. Because, there was 3 schools that they were listing as G5s that they were trying to force them to play. The same situation has now kind of arisen in Virginia because Liberty has come up. James Madison has come up, and Old Dominion's been up for a little while, but we'll see if maybe Virginia or Virginia Tech kind of get pressured, right? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty good on that. I was just going to say on the Cal Stanford stuff that's starting to come out now from Ovan. I know people are looking at that and saying, why would they want Stanford and Cal? Because they're not going to take Cal, and Stanford doesn't carry them in terms of sports. I think if that's ever to happen, and we've talked about it here, people need to realize it's not a la carte picking if that happens. It's probably a group move, as in, look, Stanford pulled Cal with them once. They might try and pull them again. Stanford and Notre Dame might be working together. When you look at Condoleezza Rice graduating from Notre Dame, being a professor at Stanford, you had Swarbrick, who's in charge at Notre Dame, but he graduated from Stanford. There's a lot of cross between those schools. So you might see some kind of negotiated entrance of multiple schools, and that might be how a Cal gets in because, if Stanford and Cal come in, that we are going to have 16 divisions in the future because that whole section of schools out there is just going to want to play each other as much as possible for travel. So we'll see. That's just on that. I know people were saying, why Cal? Why Cal? Well, they might get dragged along. But anyways, man, always love talking to you. Get out
Appreciate it. Great call, immaculate, Mr. Hawkeye. Great call by Mr. Hawkeye. Just wanted to put up on the screen here. The Power Index. Football, the FPI, ESPN, putting out the projections. We're going to go conference by conference real quick here. Florida State, number 1. Clemson, number 2. Louisville, number 3. Miami, number 4. SMU, number 5. North Carolina State, number 6. North Carolina 7, California 8. Now remember, the Football Power Index is a measure of the team's strength that is meant to be the best predictor of a team's performance going forward for the rest of the season. FPI represents how many points above or below an average team is. Projected results are based on 20,000 simulations of the rest of the season using FPI results to date, the remaining schedule, ratings and projections updated daily, yada, 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 yada. There it is. SMU being number 5, you know what? It doesn't surprise me. Louisville being number 3 surprises me a little bit. I gotta be honest with you. But it's Florida State 1, Clemson 2, Louisville 3, Miami 4, SMU 5. At the bottom half, Virginia's at the bottom, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Stanford, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, Duke, and Virginia Tech. Let's go to, we'll do the Big 12 next.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, the floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, the FBI, I love it. It provides great conversation. It is oftentimes inaccurate.
Of course.
But
of course.
But I like it. I'm not hating on the FBI. I will say this: SMU finishing 5th in the ACC is the most asinine take, in my opinion. I think SMU is a great G5 school, but I think what's missing is once you move up from G5 to Power 5, like the four Big 12 teams, what you realize is they may have a top 22, but you need 40. You need at least 40 players in rotation. And what a lot of G5 teams struggle with is depth. Injuries and depth kills the teams moving up. And I think it's going to take a few years for them to build up the depth they need to compete. But having them in front of, I think they were in front of NC State, if I'm not mistaken, or just behind NC. But either way, at best, they're going to be 8th in the conference. I think they're going to be a really good team, but they're not going to beat Clemson, Florida State, NC State, North Carolina.
Well, you know what? Go take a look at their schedule first. They don't play all those teams. They don't play all those. They have I think they have the easiest schedule in the ACC. I've talked about that earlier, not on this live show, but they got Preston Stone, a really good quarterback, and then they got the New Mexico State quarterback, Padilla, as their backup quarterback.
Great.
Yeah.
I think they're a talented team. Like, for instance, they're playing Florida State in Dallas, I think, week 6 or so, right?
Yeah, Florida State, Louisville. They play Stanford, Duke, Pittsburgh, Boston College, Virginia, California. They have the easiest, and I'm not, they could lose all those games, but I'm just saying they have the easiest schedule by far in the ACC when it comes to win-loss, when it comes to strength of schedule. So
I agree with you. I think
conference wins.
I think they have a pretty easy schedule, but give me an example. That game against Florida State.
Yep.
That game is actually worth about 2 or 3 games for SMU. That's going to be a very physical game. I don't think they're going to play a team like Florida State. They haven't played a team like Florida State, previously. And that's a physical, game that's going to take a toll on you. And it may cost them the game before or the game after, just preparing for that game. And like Boston College, big physical bruising team, right?
Yeah.
And, that's going to be a difficult game, even though on paper, the name Boston College doesn't mean anything to most people. They have big physical offensive and defensive line, which you have to, and they have a coach who's an NFL coach, right? And I forgot his name. He was on the Bill Belichick, and he coached for Penn State, and he coached as an OC for Alabama, Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien is a great, great, great coach. They're going to be well prepared. They're going to be a tough out for teams like SMU. So that's, for lack of, without belaboring the point, SMU is a good addition, but to have them as fifth in the league, I think is a little. It's an insult in my opinion. But
right.
Let me get off this line. I just wanted to speak on that for a second.
Got it. No problem. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's what this show is for. That is what this show is for. And I think I'll hold on a second here. Hold on. Is there a way I can make this? Okay. I think that might be easier to see. Okay. So we did ACC. We got with BJ disagreeing, some disagreements in the chat room. Here is the Big 12 FPI, Football Power Index. The Big 12. Kansas is number 1. Kansas State number 2. Arizona 3. Oklahoma State Cowboys 4. Utah is 5. Now they're going to be, I believe they're going to be the Big 12 media poll. They're going to be number 1 in the media poll, right? Utah Utes. But here in the Football Power Index, they're number 5. Texas Tech Red Raiders, number 6. TCU Horned Frogs, 7. UCF Knights, 8. West Virginia Mountaineers, 9. Colorado, 10. Iowa State, 11. West Virginia, 9, and Iowa State, 11. You know those fans do not agree with that. Baylor, Arizona State, Cincinnati, BYU, Houston. Those are the rankings for the Big 12. The Power Football Index, the Big 10. Oregon Ducks, first year in the Big 10, number 1. The Buckeyes, number 2. The Nittany Lions, number 3. Penn State's always number 3. But this time it's because Oregon is ahead of them. Michigan is behind them. Michigan, number 4. USC, number 5. Washington, number 6. I don't know about Washington. I don't think they're going to finish that high in the Big 10. I don't think USC is either, to be honest with you. Iowa, 7. Wisconsin, 8. UCLA's number 9. UCLA's number 9 in the Football Power Index. Nebraska, number 10. Scarlet Rutgers, 11. Maryland, 12. Northwestern, 13. The Boilermakers, 14. My beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers, 15. The Fighting Illini, 16. Michigan State Spartans, Sparty is 17. Indiana is 18. Holy smokes. And then we're going to go to the SEC. The Bulldogs. Georgia Bulldogs, number 1. Texas Longhorns, 2. Alabama, 3. Oklahoma, 4. Oklahoma is 4. That's a little bit too high. They should not be in front of the Missouri Tigers. Tennessee, number 5. Missouri, 6. LSU is 7. LSU is 7. Connor Wegman, Texas A&M. Boy, this is tough. And then Ole Miss is number 10. I am beginning to lean on Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M could be the surprise team out of the SEC. I ain't saying, but I'm saying. I'm gonna have to let it. I'm gonna have to let it marinate just a little bit more. That Texas A&M Notre Dame game, for the first time in a while, Notre Dame's tackles are young, inexperienced, and the Texas A&M rush ends are ready to rock and roll right now. I think Texas A&M is going to give. We're going to have to wait to see Riley Leonard if he's healthy. Connor Wegman, man. I've talked about him before. He was injured, just like Riley Leonard. His high school tape and the time that he's played in college, he is outstanding. He's got to, if he can just stay healthy, thank goodness he's not under the Jimbo Fisher offense anymore, where the wide receivers are going, they're doing 5 different things out there. It's crazy. That offense was lousy. The structure of that offense was lousy. They got Mr. Mike Elko. They got a whole new coaching staff. I think Connor Wegman has a chance to be a great one in this, probably his last year before he goes to the NFL. Greg, you should sing the national anthem. Well, I have sang the national anthem at a football game. I sang the national anthem at a few games, but the one game was North Hennepin Community College. They don't have a football program anymore. This was back in 1987 or 1988. North Hennepin football versus I'm not sure if it was Inver Hills or maybe Normandale. I can't remember the team that North Hennepin Community College was playing. I did a few of the games, but it was freezing cold. Absolutely freezing cold. I mean, it was winter, outdoor stadium, of course. I'm standing there by the announcer box. It was just a little building, a little brown building up on a hill. The hillsides, there weren't places where you could sit. You had to sit on the hill. The announcers were in this little hut on top of the hill, and I couldn't go in it. I had to stand outside it. And they're talking back and forth, the announcers, and there's no band. The music, you couldn't hear it. And they gave me the microphone. Greg Pflugar, national anthem. I took the microphone. I held it up to my mouth, and there was this black ice on top of the mic. And I turned to the guy and I pointed to it, and the announcer grabbed it, and he said, "Oh my gosh, somebody spilled coffee." And it froze. And of course, he's saying this out loud, and I think that people could hear a little bit of it, and he's cracking the microphone. He gives it back to me. So now I got to sing a national anthem. I don't know. It's below zero. The wind's blowing. Nobody can hear me anyways. And I had to sing that song. It was horrific. Absolutely horrific. And that was played over the radio. My mother and father were home. I had cousins listening to it, and they couldn't hear anything. And so, anyways, that is my national anthem. And by the way, well, we'll leave it at that. God Bless America. That's another great song. Cool story, Greg. Yeah, it was brutal. But I had a whole bunch of built-in excuses on why it sounded so bad. So that's one good thing out of it. Two King Slots, our neighborhood pickup team, is number 7 in the ACC. Rockin' Rant says, I will bet anyone that SMU finishes the top 8 or higher in the ACC. I can see them. We're going to find out. Washington will lose at Iowa City. Son of Sarek, UCLA will finish below Rutgers. Holy smokes. People are starting to throw elbows. People were talking football. Me and versus Echo Chamber, Utah is grossly underrated. Maybe in the football power index, but not among the media. Not among the Big 12 fans either. Northwestern ahead of Minnesota. Yeah, that hurts. That hurts, I got to tell you. But Tough Tony brings some wisdom in here. Iowa will lose in Minneapolis. No, I don't think they sabotage me. I just think, I don't know. I just remember how cold it was. It was nasty. It was brutal. They should have called the game, but they don't do that in Minnesota. They do not do that in Minnesota. Dang, I thought Ole Miss was an early favorite. Well, they are. That's the power index, right? That's the power index. If you go and if you do all conferences, let's take a look at all conferences. So according to so if you are going to look to see who made the expanded playoffs by looking at everybody, Georgia would get the number 1 seed, SEC champion. Oregon would get the number 2 seed. Florida State would get the number 3 seed. If this was the actual end result of the season, Oregon 1, Texas 2, then you've got a Big Ten, SEC, Big Ten, Notre Dame cannot be seeded one of the top 4. You got an SEC, and then you got your first ACC. So Florida State would be number 3. Another Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Mississippi. KU, Kansas would be the 4th seed. Okay? So number 1 is UGA. They would get a bye. Number 2 would be Oregon. They would get a bye. Number 3 would be Florida State. They would get a bye. And number 4, Kansas would get a bye. And then let's see who is the top G5 school. It would be Boise State. So Boise State would be number 12. Coming back here, Ohio State would be number 5. Number 6 would be Alabama. Number 7 would be Penn State. Number 8 would be Notre Dame. Number 9 would be Oklahoma. Number 10 would be Tennessee. Number 11 would be Missouri. So for the playoffs, according to the Football Power Index, when there's no games that were played, it would be number 1, Georgia, number 2, Oregon, number 3, Florida State, number 4, Kansas, number 5, Ohio State would play number 12, Boise State in Columbus. Number 6, Alabama would play Missouri. Number 7, Penn State would play Tennessee. Number 10. And number 8, Notre Dame would play somebody I can't read my writing on. Anyways, just to have some fun. Look, this is what we're going to be doing every week. We're going to be looking at the rankings. We're going to be saying if the season ended now, this is how the expanded playoffs would look. Carry Gold knows, supporter, PATC fan, and smash the like button. Do your part. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, smashing that like button. If you like our content, helps us with the algorithm so much here on the YouTube algorithm. So I appreciate it. Carrie Gold knows for the reminder. Greg Singh, Get Low by Little John. Don't know the song. I don't know the song. And, so yesterday I sang Country Roads, and I showed up on Twitter. I showed you I got dinged for it. I got dinged for it from YouTube. It's not a copyright strike. I'm not in trouble. They just take the monetization away from the show. What they do is they take away all the money that I would get when it comes to advertising. All that money goes to the owners of the song. I still keep the super chat money. And I don't really get in trouble with YouTube. It's not a copyright strike. It's not like it's one of the 3 strikes you get at YouTube. So I don't really get in trouble. This has happened to me probably 75% of the time I sing a song. About 75% of the time, they take the monetization, some of it away. That's why I'm not trying to be selfish or rude or whatever. That's why I say if I'm going to do a song, please attach a little bit of a super chat, because they're going to take away the other part of the monetization of the show. But it's okay. I mean, I'm not getting copyright strikes. I'm not getting in trouble. Carrie Gold knows, Get Low. I don't know that song. I'm going to have to look at it. Rock and Rant. Next, ESPN 30 for 30. What if I told you half of what everyone thinks is wrong, but no one knows which half? The college football realignment rumor wars. Thank you, Rock and Rant, for your super chat. I do appreciate it. There's Rock and Rant, there's always a split. Almost always, like, even the Colorado, when we reported to you about Colorado, hot bubble of action, then we went in the details about the meeting in the Big 12, there were so many people that said it ain't going to happen. They're not leaving the Pac-12. And there was a split. When we broke the USC to the Big 10, 99% of the people said I was crazy. And that is not an exaggeration. Because looking back on it now, people say, oh, that makes sense. Everyone should have known that. But back then, it was like, there's no way the Big Ten's going to skip all those states and go to USC, grab them. It ain't happening. And so we got raked over the coals. But no matter the scenario, there is never a consensus out there. This is an interesting one because there are some people believe that Florida State and Clemson are chalk for the Big Ten. Some people believe, very smart people believe, no way is the SEC going to let the Big Ten have those 2 schools. And they make a lot of great arguments. The reason why we believe that Florida State and Clemson is a chalk to the Big Ten, because this is where we believe the lay of the land is right now. When I do a chalk, when I put something on the board, for me, it's not my speculation. It is actual intel. Intel might end up being wrong. Intel might end up being worthless when it comes down to the time when it all happens. But the intel, the lay of the land right now is Florida State and Clemson to the Big Ten. No matter how crazy it sounds. Because that is the kind of an overwhelming intel right now. Because that's where the kinetic energy is. That's where the interest is. Now, there are national reporters out there who are basically saying the same thing in different ways. So I don't think we're too far out on a limb like we have been on others where we've ended up right. I think we're actually this time, this Rebel Outpost YouTube channel is in the consensus of the national reporters on this one. But we'll find out, won't we? We're all going to find out. A lot of smart people out there are saying the SEC isn't, their top targets aren't North Carolina and Virginia. They're not big enough football brands. They bring up a lot of good points. But as I put things up on the sportsbook, on any given Saturday sportsbook board, it's based upon chatter, intel, and that is definitely where we're at right now. Could it change? Yes. But that is where we believe where things are right now. But yes, there is a split. There is a definite split. Okay. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We are closing it up. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 17 minutes. I appreciate the wonderful, generous donations. Without your donations, we cannot do this every day. I hope everybody had fun talking college football once again, talking about the football power index of ESPN. People are starting to throw elbows. I'm wondering why Minnesota was number 15. Other people are wondering why SMU could be number 5 in the ACC. We all disagree with each other. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, this college football game that we love. Pageantry, history, passion. Holy smokes. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. If you're new to the channel or if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. Open up your notifications, turn them on. We can come on live at any time. We could come on again later tonight. And please smash that like button if you've enjoyed our content today. I want to thank you all for joining us. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.